Hi, this is Robert with Cruzbike, and today we're going to be assembling the brand new Cruzbike T50e. The T50e is a great urban commuting recumbent. For full specifications on the system and other components on the bike, please see the T50e page at www.cruzbike.com. The T50e arrives mostly assembled in a nice large box. Let's take a look inside. First thing we're going to do is remove all of the loose parts boxes, including the battery, the seat pad, other small parts. Here we have a protective piece where we'll find the rear seat stay, the drive wheel, and the rest of the assembly will lift right out of the box. For the moment, we're going to set the bike on its side and finish emptying the box, where we'll find the seat and any other small parts. First step will be removing all of the protective styrofoam attached to the bike. Using a small clippers, we'll clip all the zip ties, clean off the frame and the wheel of all the protective gear. And here we have all the parts laid out. We have our drive wheel, our reflectors and pedals, small parts bags and charger. We have our seat attachment, skewers, battery, rear seat stay, cushion, and our seat base and seat back. And of course our main frame with the handlebars already assembled. On the T50e, the chain is pre-assembled. Looks kind of like a mess, but don't worry, we will figure it out. There's only one way it goes. And here is where we're going to recruit the help of an assistant to hold the front end. And we're going to take a look at the chain and twist the derailleur around and make sure that the drive side of the chain is going in a straight line from the top of the chain ring to the back of a wheel. So if you take note to align the chain as you see here in the video, it should exit the derailleur on the bottom, and on the top side is where we'll have a nice loop to go around the cassette. Alternatively, you can use the quick link to remove the chain completely from the bike for assembly. First thing we need to do is get out our 5mm Allen from our J-Cool tool, and we're going to install the rear derailleur. Now it's very important that we have the washer on the derailleur spun all the way around so that the tab is up against the B-limit screw. I'm going to flip that all the way around there, and then the other tab that sticks out is going to go up against the back side of the derailleur. Once you have that aligned correctly, tighten down with the 5mm Allen. If you've aligned everything correctly, the derailleur washer should have the stop up against the derailleur flat portion, and the B-limit screw should be up against the tab on the derailleur itself. Use the picture here to verify the correct installation of your derailleur. With the help of your super cool assistant to hold the bike up in the air, perfect opportunity for a sip of coffee, maybe a little breakfast. And then when you're ready, we can install the drive wheel. Here I have left the chain off of the chain ring so we have the most slack available to us. Now that our chain is aligned, we're going to slide the wheel in, drape the chain over the smallest cog, and line up the rotor into the brake caliper. And once we have that lined up in the fork, we can have our assistant set the bike down, rest the wheel into the dropouts, just like that. And then we'll get our long drive skewer. Now on the T50 model, we want the springs on the skewer since the dropout is more like a regular bicycle. And we want the lever side on the brake side, which is the left side of the bike. We will insert the skewer through the wheel and tighten it down, and we'll have completed our drive wheel installation. Once your wheel is tightened down, pull the derailleur hanger forward to easily drape the chain back over the chain ring. Now, right about now, your assistant might be getting a little tired, so it could be very helpful if you have one of the Cruzbike bike stands, one of the couple models that we sell. We're going to rest the front end in our stand here. Take a little relief off of our assistant, but wait, don't let your assistant run off. We still have to do a couple little things here before we install our riser assembly, so hold on to that. Here we need to get a 5mm Allen. We want to loosen the bolts on the pivot clamp, and we also want to use a 4mm Allen to loosen the boom clamp. That will allow for this clamp to have a little play in it, which will make it much easier for us to slide the riser down over the fork steer tube, and we want it to go all the way down through the pivot clamp until it bottoms out against the clamps. Once our riser tube is all the way down, we will tighten our pivot clamp with a 5mm Allens. Please note the headset tension is preset at the factory and is locked in place with the locking spacer. We're going to leave our boom clamp a little loose for now for adjustments once we're done assembling. Now the next step in the process is to assemble the seat base. So we'll move everything aside except for the seat base and the seat mount. We will find our hardware that we need out of the hardware bag, which is 4 M6s, 4 washers, and 4 M6 nylock nuts. We want to mount with the short end as seen in the video here facing forward. We want the bolts to be all the way towards the back of the slot so that the quick release is all the ways forward as far as we can get it on the seat. Using our 8mm J-Cool and also our 4mm Allen, we will tighten these bolts down and have our seat base mounted to the seat mount plate. You can now install the seat base on the bike by simply sliding it over the mounts, and then we will install our quick release levers. These are just basically 100mm standard front quick release levers. Install those front and back, and we have completed the seat base installation. So we want to locate our rear seat stay. We want to remove the seat bracket as such and mount it using 2 M5 bolts and nuts to the back of the seat with the slots facing downward. We have our hardware here, and we will use a 3mm Allen and an 8mm nut driver to tighten the rear seat bracket to the seat back. Once we have fully installed the seat back bracket, we will set the seat back aside and get a 4mm and a 5mm Allen, because we will want to loosen the seat clamps that hold the rear seat stay so we can properly align the rear seat stay. This is very important. We're going to use our 4mm to undo the pre-installed bolts on the frame. And we want to loosen these because from the factory they might not be perfectly level or perfectly aligned. So we want it to be a little loose. So once we install this rear seat stay on the frame, it will allow us to align it properly with the seat back. When the seat back comes up here, if it's too tight, the alignment's wrong. So now that we have that installed and ready, we're going to put our remaining 2 6mm bolts and the plastic washers go between the seat back and the seat base like this. And then we will install that onto the seat base. And then once we have that on there, we will get the washers and the M6 nylock bolts, thread them through the bottom using a 10mm J-Cool and the 4mm. Tighten those up just snug. We just want them to be just tightened up. So we want a nice gap there where the washer is to allow for the seat to pivot. Now, because we left the clamps for the seat stay a little loose, we can see it moves back and forth, so now we can align it perfectly with the seat. And we can tighten our quick release on the seat back, and once we have done that, we have nice smooth movement of the seat. We can get it in a just general position to start, and we can tighten with a 5mm Allen the rear seat clamps, making sure they're nice and aligned, nice and even, without over tightening. Now we will find our 6mm conversion for our J-Cool, locate the pedal, which indicated left or right on the pedal. Here we're installing the left pedal. The pedals should thread into the cranks without a lot of force. Repeat on the right side. Make sure the pedals are snug but not over tight. Next, assemble the rear reflector on the big clamp and the front reflector on the smaller clamp. We're going to install the front reflector on the handlebars. We're going to be moving the handlebars a little later. Install the rear reflector on the rear seat stay. Then we're going to install our wheel reflectors, which slide right down onto a spoke in the slot you can see there. And then the little nut pushes in and then just turns with a flathead screwdriver and clicks in place. And repeat, of course, with the rear reflector on the rear wheel. The last items remaining you should have are the charger, which is in a bag here. You will also have a leftover skewer. This is the rear wheel skewer. You can throw that in your parts bin. We also have a spare boom clamp here. That's also a parts bin piece. The final step we have is to install our seat cushion. We will have our Velcro installed here, starting at the very front of the seat cushion, work it down onto the seat using a lot of pressure. You really want to let the adhesive kind of dry and kind of set onto the seat as much as possible. So avoid taking the seat cushion on and off. We've kind of left our keys attached to the handlebars. We're going to remove those now and remove our battery from the packaging. Note you have a charge port on the battery and also a spare USB port to use it as a battery to charge a phone or a Garmin. Make sure those are always nice and covered. There are two alignment holes on the back of the battery that correspond with the mounts on the tray. We're going to insert those at a slight angle, and then the battery will angle straight in and rest inside the battery tray. Very important you use the key to lock the battery in place so that it will not fall out. Now, before doing any ride, we're going to do some preliminary adjustments. We're going to loosen the stem and the handlebar and make the handlebars nearly vertical up and down. This is a better starting position for the handlebars. Tighten those back up. We're going to also make sure we adjust the slack in our brake cables, making sure we have some good braking system. Using a 5mm Allen, make sure all of our cable housings are seated and not outside of the brake lever like this. We want to make sure they're nice and seated into the lever. Once we have all of our cable housings seated like that and the cable tensioned, we want to put a little more tension on it like this. Snug it down with a 5mm Allen and then give it a little feel. Also lift the back end and spin the wheel, make sure we're not getting a lot of rubbing. And once we're satisfied with our brake cable tension, we will fully tighten the 5mm Allen. If you're not comfortable adjusting disc brakes, I recommend having this particular step done at a local bike shop. Tighten the cable down. And we will repeat the same process for the front brake as well.
Again? Just tell me.
In the box with your T50, you probably also noticed this square piece of foam. That's so you can custom cut a lower seat pad or a lumbar pad. You'll also have our Cruzbike welcome guide. Please take an opportunity to read through the Cruzbike guide here. It gives you a nice instruction on learning how to ride your cruise bike. Good information here. Now, before we do any riding, we're going to make a preliminary fit. We're concerned with our X seam and also the distance from the top of the pedals to the handlebars. With our boom clamp loose, we can push forward on the cranks until our heel is nice and straight, but not too much. We want to have a nice little angle of our leg with the ball of our foot on the pedal. And at the top of the pedal stroke, we want to have room between the handlebars and the riser. You can always move the handlebars up and down the riser a little bit to get a good 1.5 to 2 inches of clearance at the top of the stroke or so, or a nice comfortable arm position. This is an adjustment you can play with. You can always cut the top of the riser tube off once you have a good fit that you are comfortable with, or you can leave it extra to mount accessories on. Make sure your handlebars are nice and straight before tightening the stem back down onto the riser. Now that we have our preliminary fit, we're pretty much ready to ride. If you have any questions on assembly, please feel free to email us at support@cruzbike.com, and happy riding.